Every church you have walked into, every prayer card tucked inside a hymnal, every film about the life of Christ, they all show you the same man. Pale skin, soft brown hair past his shoulders, blue eyes full of calm. And not a single one of those images came from anyone who ever saw him. But to grasp why that matters, we need to go back. Not to a church, not to a museum, to a patch of dry earth outside Old Jerusalem, where a team of bone experts cracked open a stone box that had been sealed for 2,000 years. Inside that box lay a skull, dark, cracked along the brow, missing the jaw. And that skull, along with dozens like it pulled from graves across the region, would start to tell a story that 1,500 years of paint had buried. The face you know, the one burned into Western culture, was born in a throne room, not in a stable. Around the 6th century, the rulers of the Eastern Roman Empire had a problem. Their kingdom stretched from Egypt to the edge of modern Turkey. Dozens of languages, hundreds of local customs. They needed a single image that every subject could look at and feel awe. So court artists built one. They gave Christ a long face, hair split down the middle, a forked beard, wide-set eyes. Every mosaic, every icon, every portable panel followed the same template. Walk into a church in Greece and one in Syria, and you saw the same divine ruler staring back. It was not a portrait. It was a brand. That brand stuck. When the Italian masters picked up their brushes 1,000 years later, they kept the long hair and the calm gaze. But they added something new. They made him look like them. Light skin, a narrow European nose, hands that had never gripped a plow. One famous painter placed Christ's face inside a grid of lines meant to capture perfect beauty. The same grid used to draw Greek gods. The goal was not truth, it was glory. And then came the printing press. And with it, something far more powerful than any cathedral fresco. Mass-produced pictures, small, cheap, and shipped by the millions to Africa, to India, to East Asia. Mission groups printed white-skinned images of Jesus on cards, on Bible covers, on classroom posters. A child in a village near Chennai, who had never seen a European face, opened a thin paper book and met a pale stranger she was told to worship. That image traveled further than any sermon. But here is where it gets strange. Not a single writer in the earliest years of the faith, not one, bothered to describe what Jesus looked like. Think about that. We have letters from Paul. We have 4 full accounts of his life, death, and teachings. Scholars have searched through every line. There is no mention of his height, no mention of his hair, no word about the shade of his skin or the shape of his jaw. Compare that to other famous figures of the ancient world. Roman leaders got detailed portraits carved into coins within months of taking power. Egyptian rulers left behind painted coffins showing their faces with care. Yet the man at the center of the largest faith on earth was left a blank. His first followers chose silence. They cared about what he said, what he did, how he died. They did not care what he looked like. That empty slot where a face should have been was the crack that let centuries of artists pour in their own reflection. So if the texts won't tell us, what will? Bones. Real, human remains from the same time and place where Jesus lived. In burial caves near the old city of Jericho, researchers opened stone containers holding the remains of men who died in the decades around the start of the Common Era. These were farmers, craftsmen, laborers, men who ate lentils and bread, who walked dusty roads, who worked under the same sun that would have beaten down on a young builder from Nazareth. The bones told a clear story. These men were short and stocky, sturdy frames, thick joints built for hard work. Their skulls were round, with broad cheekbones and strong brow ridges. Nothing about them matched the tall, slender, pale figure hanging in the galleries of Florence. Now, a skull alone does not give you a face, but it gives you a map. A team of experts takes a skull from the right era and region. They mark key spots across the surface: the brow, the cheeks, the jawline, the bridge of the nose. At each spot, they plant a small peg. The height of each peg comes from charts that record how thick the soft tissue, skin, fat, muscle, sits on the bone at each point. Layer by layer, the face takes shape. Clay or digital mesh fills the gaps between the pegs. Muscles wrap around the jaw. Fat pads form beneath the cheeks. Skin stretches over the whole thing. What comes out the other end is not a photo. It is a best guess. But it is a guess grounded in real human remains, not in anyone's wish. The face that came out looked nothing like the one in stained glass. Broad nose, wide jaw, dark olive brown skin, deep brown eyes, and the hair short, almost cropped, not flowing down past the shoulders, not parted in soft waves, short and dark and curly. That last detail is one of the most stubborn myths to break. We think of long hair as part of the package, but Jewish men of that era almost never wore their hair long. Long hair was tied to a special religious vow, a rare promise that most people never made. Think of it like shaving your head for a cause today. It stood out because it was not normal. The normal thing was to keep your hair trimmed. Dug-up tools back this up. At a site near the Dead Sea, diggers found dozens of grooming tools, scissors, combs, razors, all packed in close quarters, where a small group of devout men lived and worked. That is not what you find in a place where everyone lets their hair grow wild. Those tools were used often, and the clothes, forget the flowing white robes. Scraps of fabric pulled from a mountain fortress show that most garments were plain, undyed linen or rough wool in earthy tones. A worker would not have stood out. He would have blended in. Only the very rich wore deep purple or bright dyes. A builder from a small northern village would have dressed like everyone else. Simple, sturdy, and dusty. The common pushback comes quickly. Some say that turning Jesus into a physical body, a skull, a set of bones, a measured face, strips him of mystery, that his power lives in the blank space. That filling in the portrait misses the point his first followers were making by leaving it empty. And there is something honest in that pushback. The silence of the early texts was not an accident. It was a choice. They wanted the message, not the messenger's jawline. But that argument only works if the blank stayed blank. It did not. Artists filled it. Emperors shaped it. Printers spread it. The blank became a mirror. And in that mirror, the people with power always saw themselves. When that reflection crossed oceans on colonial ships, it told whole nations that God looked European. That is not mystery. That is control. Knowing what Jesus more likely looked like does not shrink faith. It loosens the grip of one culture's claim on a figure who belonged to a very different world. There is a limit to what the science can do, though. No one has the bones of Jesus himself. Every skull used in these studies belongs to someone else. A neighbor, a stranger, someone who happened to die in the same century and get buried in the same kind of stone box. The face that comes out is an average. It tells you what a man from that time and place probably looked like. It does not tell you what this one man looked like. Small features, a scar, a gap in the teeth, the exact curve of an eyelid. Those are lost. And the tissue charts used to set the peg heights come from modern bodies. Ancient diets were leaner. Ancient labor was harder. Studies of ancient DNA from the region add one more wrinkle. People living in that land kept many of the same traits across dozens of generations. But waves of movement from the south and east brought new genes into the mix. That means that an average of face could shift, depending on which village, which family line you sample. The portrait is a window, not a photograph. Still, even a window is enough to shatter the old image. The gap between what the bones suggest and what the paintings show is vast. And every time you see that gap, you are looking at something deeper than art history. You are watching one group of people decide what God looks like and choosing their own reflection. If this story shifted something in the way you see the world, the next one goes even deeper. Hit subscribe so you do not miss it. And if someone you know has never heard this side of the story, send it their way. The stained glass still glows. The pale face still hangs in 1,000 halls. But beneath the paint, Beneath the gold leaf, beneath the ink of 1,000,000 printed cards, a darker, shorter, rougher man walks a dirt road, and he does not look back.